play-by-play announcer John Gooden. John, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Steve. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Is it weird for you being on this side of the microphone?
I'm getting used to it now. I don't know why, but people seem to value things that I've got to say. So I've been doing a few podcasts over the years. So yeah, I guess it is a little bit of a juxtaposition.
Do you enjoy it though?
Yeah, I mean, listen, is my favorite subject myself? Probably not, but at the same time, it's a subject that I should know a little bit about. So it should be fairly easy in many respects.
So before we go deep into your career and MMA as a whole, tell us a little about your hobbies away from the sport and who John Gooden is as a person.
Not a lot of time for hobbies these days, but I mean, I'm a dad now, so I've got a daughter who's coming up on 3. So uh, our spare time, my wife and I, is very much dedicated to her. But obviously, I think it is important to have your own stuff, and I've always been a martial artist, so martial arts is very much a part of my identity and who I am. So I still practice, although through lockdown, it's been pretty difficult. I recently bought myself, I don't know if you guys can see, my mate Sven there,
Yeah.
like a grappling dummy. So I've got a little arrangement here so I can still do that. I did some triathlon stuff a couple of years back, pretty seriously, but I've gone back to my martial arts training as my main focus. So that's another thing, but I'm big into cars, always have been, fast cars, motor racing. I'm an Arsenal fan. What else? I'm into, healthy living, trying to be the best version of myself. And yeah, friends, family stuff. I think that probably, nothing particularly exciting there apart from your usual.
You mentioned you're an Arsenal fan. It's possibly a sore subject at the minute, but what do you make of the season so far?
Yeah, it's been up and down. It's at times I feel like the side can beat, pretty much anyone in the Premier League. I do have faith in Arteta. I think that the problems that we have might stem from like an organisational issue where, yeah, Arsenal Football Club is just a bit more, seems to be more complicated than a lot of other clubs for some reason. So once they get that figured out, I think it'll be a lot easier for him. But yeah, at times we play beautiful football. We got a decent squad. I think there are areas that need to be bolstered. It's just when they come together and they play well, it's a joy to watch them. So yeah, I'll try and remain positive with all of that stuff.
You were teasing some big news on Instagram a little while ago. Do you have a hint?
Teasing. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a couple of things which I'm happy to talk about. So the UK MMA, well, mixed martial arts has been hit real hard by the pandemic, and it's obviously in the category for probably one of the worst things to be doing if you're spreading a disease. So, all jokes aside, that's meant that gyms have had to shut their doors. Elite athletes have been able to continue, thankfully, but everyone else, like myself included, we're at a loose end. We and a lot of people go to martial arts for not just physical reasons but mental reasons as well, and it's a very positive environment largely. And people derive their income from that as well. So gym owners and coaches and people like that, and a lot of fighters, obviously. I think there's going to be a big gap in the talent because people are now having to walk away from the sport because they no longer have the financial support that they would have done before. And a year out plus is a long time to be on the shelf for an aspiring athlete. So there will be some problems going forward. But what I'm concerned about is that gyms will be closing. So what I'm trying to do at the moment is, well, I have set up a GoFundMe. I just haven't told anyone about it yet, just because I'm trying to get a lot of different pieces together. I've set up a GoFundMe page, which will take like financial donations from anyone that's in a position to be able to do so. But also I'm going to be selling a bunch of stuff, whatever that might be, whatever people are willing to give me to sell. And the proceeds of that will then feed back into that GoFundMe. And then in June, I'm going to get the public, probably MMA people, to vote on depending on how much money we get, like the gym or the gyms that deserve this not deserve, I keep saying that, I mean, would benefit most from this injection of cash. And the whole thing's called keeping the lights on. A gym is a place for many different individuals to go to learn and develop for many different reasons. Again, I'm one of those people, so I see the benefits all the time. If those gyms close, then that means these people don't have somewhere to go. So it's important to keep the gyms going. So that's basically what this initiative is about. And I've also come out with I'm starting my own, like, I've got a t-shirt here, which I'm selling. This was the Joaquin Buckley knockout. A friend of mine designed that, so I'll be selling that. I'm also looking to extend that range, but 20% of the sale of that t-shirt will be going directly into the pot for this as well. So yes, trying to get that little shop going. I thought it was going to be easy. It's not. Then all of my own kind of personal views on how things should be ethical and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm learning a lot, but this week I'm trying to get it in a position where if I don't do my own big this week, then it will be next week.
That's awesome. Great job. Huge credit to you for that, obviously.
Thank you.
Do you remember a specific moment, maybe as a child, where you were first exposed to martial arts? And what first attracted you to it?
I remember watching all the films. I remember Bruce Lee. I remember Karate Kid, Bloodsport, things of that nature. Maybe not Bloodsport when I was super young. But for me, it's always been participation. Like, I can watch something and enjoy it. But for example, I'm an Arsenal season ticket holder, have been for many, many years. But I was playing a pretty decent level of amateur football when I was holding a season ticket. Even if it was like Arsenal United, if I had a game that Saturday, I would play. I'd rather play than go and watch Arsenal, even though I love Arsenal to bits. So I ended up in judo when I was about 7 years of age, and I did that for a little while. So I guess I just really enjoyed whatever it was about martial arts, the structure, the physicality, and whatever it was making me feel back then was driving me to continue, and that's what took my attention. And then all the other stuff compounds it, right? So you start seeing these heroes and people that go on and do great things with it or entertain you via incredible feats of like human athleticism, and you want to strive towards that. So I ended up going from like judo to karate, and then got into boxing and so on and so forth. But yeah, excuse me, I think if I participate in something and get my hands on something, then that tends to keep me involved.
It's probably a good time to go to our first listener question. It's from Peter Harrison from the Fight Game Media Facebook group. Shout out to those guys. Was there a particular fight that first introduced you to MMA?
I've been trying to think about this. I have a terrible memory. People might be maybe surprised about that, because you'd think guys like me who do commentary, we've got to be able to draw on all of this information at ease, but it doesn't happen like that for me at all. I have to study each individual one. I do remember James Zikic, a guy from Watford, and I also remember Lee Remedios. And I remember watching these two guys, and they stick out to me. I remember Lee Remedios doing some crazy stuff, and I was like, what is that? And it was in a cage, everything else. And James Zikic was representing Watford at the time, which is close to where I'm from. I pretty much grew up in Watford. So that felt like it was close and attainable for me. As I say, going back to, I feel like if I'm going to be swept up by something, I've got to be able to participate in it. So I think those guys were in it, and I probably associate Brawl in the Hall was maybe something of that. But once something interests me, I then like jump around and try and gather up as much information as I can, have conversations with people give me stuff to watch. Like my friend Chris Charles was a big UFC fan and Pride fan from back in the day. So I remember him like introducing me very quickly to a bunch of stuff, because like what we are now, we always want people to enjoy what we enjoy, and MMA is so fascinating. Chris had that and was just like showering me with stuff. So it's hard for me to pinpoint which one came first, but I do remember the Lee Remedios and James Zikic come to mind. and then obviously we were watching, was it Bravo, or I can't remember what channel it was, but then The Ultimate Fighter, and then watching like previous UFCs, going back through the history of stuff.
Tell us, or give us a bit of a rundown with your experience before coming to the UFC, including your work as an electrician as well.
Well, that's a long question, because
shorten it. Give us a brief rundown if you can.
So I've done many things, like professionally, career-wise, if you like. I say professionally, I mean in terms of a career. I went to uni like a bunch of people do. I didn't get the greatest degree in the world. I didn't really value that. But anyway, I ended up in the city, which is where I wanted to be. Worked there for a while. But whilst I was there, actually, for some reason, decided that I wanted to be a TV presenter. And despite having doing pretty well in the city, it still wasn't, I wanted to be working with the banks, like investment banks and stuff. And I wasn't quite there. I was actually working in the recruitment space. So yeah, my head was turned by TV presenting. So I actually dropped out of that and went to work for free for the BBC, doing as a runner, essentially. Did that for, let's say, a couple of years. Had some opportunities come my way, and they didn't really come to fruition. And I was getting pushed behind the camera more and more, and it just wasn't really what I wanted to be doing. So, and you earn no money in TV in the early days, that's for sure. So I went back to the city, but that was rubbish. So I ended up joining my dad's family business as an electrician, but I had to go back to college to retrain for a few years in order to do that. Stayed with my dad, until I left him to go full-time as a broadcaster. But in between that, I've always been like a competitive sportsman, like weekend warrior style, you know, like, as I said, playing football. I played high level squash. I was like, when I was really young, swimming was like another big thing. I've done loads of different sports, and always been decent, but not really excelled or been outstanding. So I've always been in the mix, but never a standout athlete. So I've bounced around a bunch, and as I say, combat sports, martial arts has always been a theme. And when MMA sort of came about, I was in my late 20s, I think, when I first started it. So I was never going to make a run. I was far too old already. But that didn't stop me from really wanting to get better and participate. And the sport was even younger than what it is now, obviously. It was over 10 years ago. And I just saw that the people that I was training with just weren't recognized as true top level athletes. And they absolutely are and were. And that didn't sit well with me. So I was always kind of trying to educate people more or correctly about mixed martial arts. And when I looked at the landscape, no one was really marketing the sport in front of the camera behind a microphone. In the UK, the way that I thought the public would be more, where it'd be more palatable, shall we say. And this is no disrespect to the other people that were doing it at the time, largely, not everyone, but for the most part, it just wasn't my style. So to cut a long story short, I was on my own journey. I was looking to compete and things of that nature. Some stuff happened, like bad injuries, five years out due to a back injury of wrists. What else? I mean, I have a long list of stuff which still needs to get sorted out. But what that did is it pushed me to serve the sport in other ways. So I ended up writing reports and just being an MMA person, like being invited to go to BAMA, but write it up for some sort of digital media. And yeah, I was loving it. And eventually I got an opportunity to work on my coach's own show as a commentator, and it just went from there. I went from that to then meeting Graham Boylan via his show. Graham Boylan took over Cage Warriors. I did a bunch of work with Cage Warriors for a few years and ended up getting a screen test for the UFC, and the rest is history.
So in 2014, when you joined the UFC, you were basically brought in as just the European announcer. Looking back, did you think at that time that it would be as successful as it has been?
As what, the UFC being successful, or my
own? No, your journey in the UFC, given that you were just brought in as the European announcer.
Right. Probably at the time, no, and it was causing me some some problems actually, because when I first joined, I've now been brought in and I'm doing, let's say, I don't know if I started off with maybe 5 shows in the year. And, I was in my 30s when I joined the UFC. So I've now already got like an established life. I have a wife at home. I have a mortgage. I have financial stuff that needs to be delivered. So it's not like being a teenager or in your early 20s where I'm already in deep, right? So whatever happens, I have to pay those bills, but I also want to live this dream. The only way that I could do that was to work multiple angles. So when I was sort of happy. That was all right when I was with Cage Warriors, because I realized where we were at. I realized what I was doing and the money wasn't there and all of those sorts of things. And it was a hobby. But then all of a sudden you have this validation that actually you are now actually pretty good. Otherwise the UFC wouldn't have hired you. And you see all of these other broadcasters that you're maybe standing alongside, or even like in other sports, where people are saying that your job's way more difficult than theirs. All right, you might not be at their level, but in terms of where you're at and the trajectory that you're on, you're thinking, well, if I was any good, I'd be doing this full time, but I wasn't. And I was having to balance that with a very challenging day job. I was running the business with my dad, which is a 7-day-a-week kind of deal. So yeah, running a business with my dad was a challenge to then try and like really throw myself into this broadcast thing with the UFC. So I wanted more and needed more to be able for one to take over the other. And for the first couple of years, I just couldn't see it happening. There just wasn't enough. The UFC weren't doing enough shows internationally. So I got that. Dan and I started doing the Inside the Octagon show, which was great, and that was really helping. But I would have done that every day if I could have done. So it wasn't really until the UFC offered me the opportunity to start producing and start helping them with their shoots in Europe, that I was able to then take a bit of a pay cut, if you like, from my full-time salary as an electrician, and say, okay, look, I think I just for my own mental well-being, I want to believe that I am a broadcaster now, because that's just what I want. I just wanted to be a sports broadcaster rather than, am I an electrician? Am I a presenter, a commentator? What am I? Like, I'm wearing all of these things, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it was not helping me going to a very depressing building site 5-6 days a week and then trying to be a positive broadcaster on the weekend. Yeah. And also I wasn't able to work for any other MMA promotions in the meantime. So it wasn't like I was able to still get my reps and still stay sharp doing other stuff. And I've never really understood the social media game as even to the day. So yeah, it was tough in the beginning, and I'm glad we were able to make that move. But there was a lot of guilt. I left my dad's business, which I'd helped him grow a little bit. And so that's an awkward conversation, but he's been super supportive. I can't thank him enough. But yeah, now that's kind of all in the past. And I'm still to the day, I probably haven't fully cut that safety net of the tool bag. But I think I'm probably getting there. If it wasn't for the pandemic, I wouldn't have given it a second thought. But I have ambitions further in broadcasting that I want to fulfill.
I saw an interview you did in 2018 where you said you felt a little bit overlooked by the UFC at that point. Has that changed this year, given you've done some more shows, you've done the Fight Island shows, you've done more backstage work, you've done work on the desk? Do you feel more validated because of that?
Did I say I was overlooked? Oh dear.
I was just, last night when I was doing some research, I can't remember who you were being interviewed with, but it's like, you felt at the time that, so yeah, do you feel more validated?
Yeah, listen, maybe that might have been, if I did say that, it was probably born out of frustration. And as I just explained, I was going to a job during the day that I didn't really enjoy, and yet every now and then I'll be participating in this like celebration of MMA, which is, you know, what I loved. And a lot of people, I was getting positive feedback. I enjoyed like the process. The whole thing was just great. And I felt like I was part of something rather than, you know, rewiring a house. Nothing wrong in that. But when you've then tasted being part of this big kind of like elite level thing, you just want more. I cannot explain to you what it's like. If no one's ever been to an MMA show, like the energy is ridiculous.
Yeah.
How do I replace that? And once you've tasted it, it's like a drug, you want more. So I just wanted more of that. And I felt like I could offer more. So yes, listen, the sport needed to grow for opportunities to be developed. And I needed to earn my stripes. I needed to prove to the UFC that I was in it for the long haul, that I could add value. Very, very important. Whatever we all do, we have to be adding value. So I'm grateful that I've been given the opportunity to do that. I hope that still is the case. And I was then able to do multiple different things for the UFC, and here we are today. And yeah, I've just signed a new contract actually. So yeah, things are looking up.
And you recently done some radio commentary for Five Live as well. How has it been adapting to that, and obviously with the different challenges that brings to a TV commentary?
Well, you mentioned it there, right? Challenge. Now, as much as some people might not recognize this, like I want the challenges, but I enjoy that. When people have said to me it's going to be really hard to do MMA on the radio, I don't think it'll work. I'll give it a go. I'll try. Yeah. You know, let me have a crack at that. I've done everything from grassroots mixed martial arts all the way up to the UFC, so I know how to prepare for a broadcast. It's then just seeing if I have the verbal IQ, I guess, to be able to do that, because it is tough. You've got to be very descriptive, and yeah, it's a challenge. I'd like to have a conversation with the producer again. I do it infrequently. I think I've done it 3 times, 4 times now. So again, it's difficult to build on anything when you're doing one every year or one every couple of years. But I'd like to get some direct feedback from the producer, which I haven't yet, about this most recent commentary gig for Five Live, and just see where I can improve, because I know it's not perfect, and I'm always looking to get better at what I do. But it was good fun.
Yeah, because you really got to paint the whole picture to the audience, haven't you?
Well, they have no visuals, so then you've got to literally, you've got to stop engaging in general chit chat for the most part. That's got to go to the side. And the way that the commentary is set up on the TV is you actually hear quite a lot from the color analysts, way more than you do in other sports actually. But on the radio, you can't do that. It has to be pure play-by-play. And then when there's a lull, or when there's a direct throw, which is measured by the play-by-play guy, which is hard to measure in a fight because you never know what's going to happen. That's when they come in. Otherwise, you can't come in, or it will be a car crash. You're just going to have to let me paint the picture. And yeah, and that's the challenge.
You've talked about this before, but tell me about the level of preparation you put into each card you work, because it seems quite intense.
Yeah, but I love it. So the prep is ongoing, honestly. And that's another thing about transitioning to doing this full time now. It's given me the opportunity to be able to do that. So like this morning, I'm scrolling through social media, if you like, and seeing what went on overnight, because obviously the US is the hotspot for all of this, and I was sleeping when stuff goes down. So I'll take notes, maybe actual notes or mental notes of what's going on, and that then I have to keep a database of that sort of stuff. But when a fight card comes up, as soon as I know I've got that assignment, I will be looking very closely at those individuals that are fighting, the division, and just always thinking about how I can start representing that story in commentary. And that just layers. You just build that. You just keep, it's like an onion. You know, you just have to keep on with those layers and getting down to the core of what it is you're trying to say. So you take a whole big old basket of stuff and then you whittle it down to, you know, what then essentially sits on a piece of paper on fight nights. So yeah, it's good fun, but it's pretty tough. And the UFC thing is not just about the fighters and researching those guys, watching their fights, listening to who they are and what they're trying to represent in that fight camp. But then you've got the program elements, and that's what people probably underestimate in terms of the time, because with such a crazy schedule, my producers are week to week to week to week, one show after another, after another, after another. So it's not like we get a long time to sit there and marinate on a particular fight card. And they're so busy, I get that stuff quite late. So within about 10 days of a fight, 2 weeks to 10 days, I'll start getting the information. And then it's a race. Then I've got to take everything that I've got, measure it against everything that the UFC's given me. And then I've got to start writing all of my scripts, understanding the promo, not just for the show that I'm doing, but the show that is coming up next, and also the next pay-per-view. So you have to be across multiple elements, not just the show that you're working on. And you've got to have a good level of knowledge for that, because you're specifically trying to identify elements of promotion to parlay with whatever the UFC are putting together in their video packages.
Talk to me about the experience you had commentating for fights on Fight Island, because I've spoken to fighters about this, but what's that like from your perspective? And that's also from Jason Hagholm from the Fight Game Media podcast group.
Yeah, it's intense, you know. First of all, like this time last year, I'd just been stood down, or was about to be stood down from commentating on UFC London. And then it was the start of the pandemic, right? It's like, right, we don't know where this is going to go. So I'm sat there thinking, am I going to work this year? Like, how am I going to pay the bills? And the UFC, no one had any answers. So when we actually got to Fight Island the first time around, it was a great sense of relief that I was going to work, because that is an important thing for me now. This, as much as it's still my love and my hobby, the other thing is, it's how I earn my money. So I now have to look at it as a business, not only as a passion. And that does cause that, you know, that crosses, they blur lines here and there, which sometimes makes things uncomfortable. But I'm on site, Fight Island, and you have to take it for what it is. It was this incredible, we're in a wonderful place, a beautiful hotel. The UFC have gone to such efforts. It's now like, I hated hearing the word at the time, but unprecedented, right? So everything's new, and you're seeing it play out, and you're a part of the infrastructure. And then, those, you know, this is kind of, again, sort of multifaceted, but the actual experiences on Fight Island, like my prep, were very intense. The first time, like John Anik tested positive for COVID, it was a false positive, but then I was having to get ready to do a pay-per-view on like 2 days notice, which was very stressful. No sleep, anxiety, like underprepared. So that exhausted me a bit. Then you're away from your family for a month. My wife is struggling alone with our daughter and trying to work as well. So there's lots of pressures coming in, but at the same time, you're doing what you love. You're stuck, like isolated in a little bubble with like-minded people, with people that you are inspired by, people that are pushing you professionally and challenging you and helping you raise your game. So there are a lot of things that came out of that for me that were really positive for self-growth as a broadcaster, as a human being. It beat up my relationship with my wife a little bit, but then we obviously had to remedy that. So we then got stronger as a partnership. Rinse and repeat the 3 times that we've been through Fight Island. But yeah, the actual fights themselves were phenomenal. I was on some really good cards as well. I managed to get some decent calls in, I'd like to think. Went through some unique experiences, like with like the Herb Dean situation and other stuff, you know, so like good and bad, experiencing it all. So in short, roller coaster. But on the other end of it, stronger and better for it.
Talk to me about commentating fights in an empty building in that environment. Does that make things more challenging? Because you mentioned the Herb Dean situation there as well. How does that sort of change what you're doing from your perspective?
Well, it does change it. Like I remember when I was commentating on the Robert Whittaker Darren Till fight. Till went back to his corner and said to his coach that his knee was wrecked. And I remember Daniel Cormier in a previous piece of commentary had spoken out about something, and then he got like a load of fans said that the fighter had heard that or something like that. So I whispered it. I whispered it so that the viewers could hear it, and also so I could communicate with the guys that I was working with. Some people liked that, some people didn't, but at the same time, I didn't want to. Robert Whittaker's corner was the closest one to me, so I didn't want to give them information that they weren't perhaps privy to, because I don't think that's fair. So that's one thing that I was conscious of. But everything else, mate, we have to realize that we're there for a television audience. So I've still got to bring that same energy. But then at the same time, my job as a commentator, going back to what we're saying about radio stuff, I've got to try and bring you in. You want to know what it's like in an empty arena. So now actually I've got something else to talk about. I might not have the fan reaction to talk about. I might not let the fans be the soundtrack of the night, but I can maybe let the silence play a part. I can talk about the environment in a way that's not been overused and overplayed through, the eons of time that sports commentary has been in place. So there were some unique bits that I could lean into, which I felt helped me out. But it is weird when you hear your voice echo back around at high level mixed martial arts, but you've got to get over it. I genuinely, despite ranting and rambling at you as I am now, I don't particularly like the actual sound of my voice. And it's a reminder that so many people are listening and watching, which again is sometimes unsettling because I'm not really in it for those reasons. So there were a few little bits and pieces, but without sounding like a dick, I'm a professional now. Get over it and get on with it.
And a follow up to that from Paul Fontaine from Fight Game Media. Would you maybe like to see this happen in future a few times a year for a different environment?
I don't know why you would do that. I sort of understand what people are saying, but we sort of get that with Contender Series and the Ultimate Fighter. So you are sort of getting that, but I don't know why you would choose to do it, because then you're choosing it because there's some kind of benefit. So if there's what's the benefit? I don't know what the benefit is.
I think people have enjoyed sort of hearing the strikes, hearing the corners on the broadcast as well.
I think then maybe what the UFC might be doing, and believe you me, they think of everything. Maybe they find certain microphones, or they put more microphones, directional microphones, so that we still hear those sound effects a bit better. We hear the corners a bit better because they improve or increase the number of microphones in the corner, rather than take out the fan element. Because we're as much, I'm super lucky. I've been at these fights, and I'm very lucky to have been there. And I feel sorry for those that haven't been able to, who would normally have been there themselves. So, I'd love to share that experience with people, not have it dulled down, because it becomes a spectacle and it adds to the occasion. So I think when we move on from this, we're trying to sell the positives right now, just because that's all we've got. And and that's our job. But really, we want fans back there so that we can all enjoy this together.
We've got a few questions from Twitter from Ashley, the MMA nerd. She asked, what's the favorite fight that you've called?
Yeah, I've really struggled answering this. I really do. Favorite fight that I've called. I've got so many, you see. I'll go back to the Conor McGregor Ivan Bushinga fight at Cage Warriors was a big one, and it's been played out to us recently again, which is maybe why it's sort of fresh in my mind. I felt like we were on something big there with that Conor hype train. It was it was just a big deal at the time. It felt really big. I can't say big enough. So that was one. Event was the Dublin event. That was like outstanding. And I can't really pick out any one fight because it was like a package deal, because all the Irish won and it built to Conor's fight, and then the place just went absolutely nuts. It's hard for me to separate anything out there. Bisping Silva, we've seen that be replayed quite a bit. That was a big deal for me on many different levels. And that was a cracking fight as well.
Yeah.
Frank Camacho against Damien Clark. Oh my God, how have I forgotten his name? They had an absolute war. So that's another great fight that comes to mind. There are so many.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had so many positive experiences.
So on a similar sort of note, what goes through your mind when like a moment happens? So think back to the Buckley and Kasanganay knockout. When you've seen something like that, or maybe in the Anderson Silva Bisping fight when he landed that knee, what's going through your mind when you've got to call something like that?
Well, I'm the one who can't get too carried away, because I'm the one essentially steering the ship along with my producers. And that's very important. The producers don't get enough credit in this, because they tell me where I'm supposed to be going, and they correct me if I'm going a little bit one way or the other. But in that moment, we have our initial reaction, which is entirely natural, and we can't help that. But then we've got to give it context. And the Buckley one, I tried to find words to give it context. And like I'm saying, that might be the most spectacular knockout we've ever seen. And then I followed it up with here we go. That's real life ninja stuff, you know. So there's a couple of things there, but then with the Anderson Silva Bisping fight, was it round 3 when Silva at the end of the round throws that knee? Everyone's celebrating like it's done, and I had to quieten all of that out, focus on the referee, and I think I did a pretty good job of saying this fight's not over. Like, Herb Dean hasn't waved this fight off. And so, as much as everyone in the building still was confused, and Anderson Silva definitely was, I hope I let the viewers at home know that no, that hasn't been called. So you have to control yourself and remember that you are the broadcaster in that point, and keep on track. Celebrate, but keep on track, and don't completely fall apart.
Yeah, I was in the building for that Silva Bisping fight, and speaking from someone in the crowd, there was definitely a little while when everyone thought it was over.
Yeah.
Until they're literally pulling Silva down off the cage.
Chaos. It was chaos. But I think I identified that and then tried to walk through what was happening, why, and I didn't want to be detrimental to Bisping, but if you got to protect yourself at all times. Like you just can't take a moment. You can't lapse. It's just, that was crazy. But he came back and won, so it's all good in the end.
Yeah. Another question from Ashley. What's your dream matchup? So I guess we'll do one for current and one for all time. Or maybe let's mix some eras.
Yeah, listen, I was talking last night to someone about Amanda Nunes Shevchenko, and so it was International Women's Day the other day, so we can lean into that a little bit. If in a perfect world their physicalities, their sort of physical frame is the same, and then we can put them skill for skill and see who actually wins, because I do feel like Shevchenko's a smaller athlete, so even if they were to fight again at 135, I just feel like people will take some edge off of any Amanda Nunes win because she's just bigger.
Yeah.
So it'd be good if this isn't the case, by the way. So this is fantasy matchmaking, but it would be good if you could kind of even those bits out and have them fight. Otherwise, right now, I've always been a big John Jones fan, and despite his indiscretions, I would love to see him back. I'd like to see him fight Ngannou. I think to see a John Jones up against someone who's as ferocious as Ngannou really, floats my boat. It really does. So that's an interesting one. Otherwise, the UFC do such a good job, generally speaking. You know? They really do. I'd like to have seen GSP versus Nurmagomedov, but I would have liked to have seen that with a GSP who is younger by 5 or 6 years, if I'm honest. Otherwise, right now, I think that division's in a bit of a weird old state.
Yeah.
We've got a few divisions that are a bit like open, which is good. There's no kind of real big X versus Y in a lot of them. I'm sort of trying to think of who it might be. Even Henry Cejudo coming back once we get this Aljo Peter Yan situation sorted out. I'd like to see him fight the winner. So there's plenty out there, but I'm sorry I haven't got something better for you.
And is there any commentators in the UFC or outside, we'll go for, that you haven't had a chance to commentate with that you would like just think, I'd really like to work with that person?
Yeah, listen, I'm happy to work with anyone. I really am, and that's again another challenge that I'm always up for, to try and bring out things from the person that I'm sitting next to, or the people that I'm sitting next to, that I know they do well, or I feel like they haven't really been able to exercise before. So I would like to, of course, I'd like to work with Joe Rogan. That'd be an interesting one. Dominic Cruz would be an interesting one. I don't know if he'd like to work with me, but again, I think he is technical. Obviously, he's got a fantastic mind for the sport. So I'd like to see how I would be able to challenge that with my style. Bas Rutten, like back in the day, you know, I've watched some of the old fights, you know, and Bas he's a legend. So he's one. But otherwise just open-minded to that. I loved working with Brian Stan. I wish I was able to have done more of that. I feel like he's like a gold standard, you know, really excellent. And I only got to do it the one time. So and Kenny Florian, by the way, I had a great show I felt like I had a great time with him in Korea for the first UFC Korean card. And that, I really enjoyed that. So just a shame that I didn't get to work with those guys a bit more.
You mentioned Joe Rogan there. He's obviously someone who's come in for a bit of criticism lately. Do you buy into anything like that? Or what, from your perspective, makes him so good?
I mean, he's just like, there's so many things that people don't see and understand about a broadcast that makes someone good. Honestly, the energy that the guy brings, the way that he can assert his opinion, how he can draw on all of his experience, how he can, like, even down to post-fight interviews, you know, people do not necessarily understand just how difficult they are and what a natural Joe is. And we all make little mistakes here and there. Get on any microphone for an hour and try and say everything spot on, let alone 7 hours or whatever it is we end up doing now on a UFC broadcast. So Joe's an authority on the sport. He speaks that way. I actually think, for a man who has his level of fame, that he's very humble. You know, I truly believe that. I don't think that he thrashes his ego around like a lot of people who has his reach do. So I enjoy those elements. I enjoy his natural enthusiasm for the sports, and it's synonymous with the UFC. You know, I look to people like Joe to get ideas for how I can be better. So people are always going to hate. People are always going to like something more than someone else. And everyone's entitled to their opinion. But from someone in the know who knows what it's like to sit in that row of chairs, he does a fantastic job.
I'm a bit conscious of time here, but we're just going to move on to a bit of fight talk, if that's all right with you. It's the biggest talking point in MMA at the minute, really. Talk to me about what you thought of the Petr Yan Aljamain Sterling finish. And that's from Ryan Frederick from Fight Game Media as well.
Yeah, it's just super unfortunate, right? Just really, really unfortunate. Like, what happened there? Why? Because he'd been in that position earlier in the fight and didn't do that. So that's why even at the time on the radio, I sort of said, I feel like he's been given an instruction from his corner to do that. And it transpires. Some people are saying his cornerman told him to hit him. Someone said no, he said kick him. And we don't really know. And I don't speak Russian. So I'm not really sure. But it was just, oh my God, it's just awful. Just an awful situation for everyone. And no one wanted it to go down that way. Aljo, Peter Yan's lost his title as a result of it. He was on his way to winning and retaining his title as well. So it doesn't make sense. And the aftermath is just very unfortunate again. Like, it's just, no one's winning here. No one's winning here. So what can you do? It's just, I hate it. I hate all of it. I don't know how that happened. But if it was my corner that did that, I think his team needs to like pull that person aside, and like I would have an internal investigation of my own team, because the stakes are too high. The stakes are too high to be getting things like that wrong. And now his reputation is kind of tarnished as a result.
Mm-hmm.
And then people are now saying stuff about Aljamain as well. The whole thing's just horrible.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the main event. How did you score that fight? And tell me a bit about Jan Blachowicz, because you've spent some time with him, haven't you?
Yeah, I know him pretty well now. I haven't gone back and rewatched it since commentating on it, and I'm not very good at scoring whilst I'm commentating. But I did feel like Jan was just landing more shots. You know, Izzy has this style which is very effective, where he spends time with loads and loads of feints, trying to get good reads on his opponents. And I thought that he was getting good reads and getting reactions out of Jan, which he was going to be able to capitalize on. But Jan, I think, is just a bit more of a veteran than people would imagine. And people don't necessarily understand all of the minutiae, the nuances that go on at the very, very top, the 1% and 2% that separates them from the rest. And perhaps just as Izzy was about to pull the trigger on some stuff, Jan was getting off his shots, and he did enough. And then he then doubled down on that by applying more of a wrestling assault. And he did enough. You know, he did enough to get through. It was a seasoned performance. He was up against it. He was the underdog. He would have been listening to a lot of trash talk in his direction for a long time. And he was able to silence all of that and get the job done. So hats off to him. Not many nicer people in the sport, if I'm honest. We do have a lot of nice men and women in our sport. Honestly, we do. But I've been out to Jan's place. He's a really lovely bloke, easy to spend time with, quiet, family man. For someone that's so big and overbearing, his personality isn't that way at all. He's not intimidating. He's easy to work with. Like, I'm a producer, and he'll just, I'm going to be there at this time, whatever you need me to do. No problem, no problem, no problem. And he works with you. And he's now a champion of the world. And we're lucky that we have many that do that, but some just find that process a lot more difficult than others. But Jan is a really nice guy. I'm very happy for the success that he's enjoying now.
Just quickly, Leon Edwards obviously fighting this weekend. What do you make about Bilal Muhammad as a return opponent for him after such a long layoff? And where do you now rank Leon as, like, in the consensus of top UK fighters of all time?
Oh, well, he's definitely up there, right? That run that he's on right now speaks volumes. The welterweight division is a hotly contested division, but not only that, you know, he's delivering. All right, he's been quiet for a while, not really his fault. His skill set is top draw, and on his night, he can beat anyone in the world. So I'm excited to see what Leon does. I think he just had to take any fight at this point.
Yeah,
he's been away for so long. There aren't that many options for him. You look down. I do this quite a lot and just see who's available at any what time. And it might have been Wonder Boy, who was probably the next best option for him. but he's injured. Like, so you can't look at Wonder Boy. Masvidal's now was looking to be matched up with Usman. Covington didn't want to fight him. Burns was just coming off of like, who's he got left?
Yeah.
You know, he's already fought for Sensei Luque. So not many people made sense. And then they offer you the Bilal Muhammad fight. The guy is ranked. All right, it's right back down there. But like, you've got an opportunity to go in main event. So it's 5 rounds and he's going to be the betting favorite. So he can get back on the horse on this, but he's also got a lot to lose. So it's a big risk. Do I think it's as big a risk as the Hamzat fight? Maybe not, because Hamzat wasn't ranked. Hamzat felt indestructible, and it's a fight. So you never know what's going to happen. So yeah, I like he had to take whatever was presented to him. And I think at this point, he just wants to get the rust off, and he's got itchy knuckles. So let's see how he performs on the weekend.
Just very quickly before we finish here, we've got a couple of questions left from a listener, Jason Hagholm. Who do you see as the next UK contenders to get onto the level that Leon is at now? And what do you think about Cage Warriors going over to California to run a show?
Yeah, good luck to Cage Warriors doing that. That's awesome. I know they've been rumored to go stateside for a while now, but it just goes to show that they're always looking to stretch their borders and boundaries, and that will shine a brighter light on the promotion and therefore the fighters. So yeah, I hope that's a successful trip for them. In terms of fighters on the come up, look, we've got so many great fighters. The ones that you obviously that are already in the rankings, but I mean, Tom Aspinall is going to climb very quickly. Mike Grundy, he's been super unlucky as well. I think that he's a hard fight for anyone given his style, so he could very quickly jump up. Arnold Allen, another fighter who we've just seen has been announced to have a fight, so he too has an incredible win streak. If he can get past Yusuf, then he's going to be right there in the mix. Jack Shaw, unbeaten prospect from Wales, won't be long before he turns contender. I'm going to be missing people out here. Perhaps people that haven't been signed yet. Jake Hadley.
Yeah.
I keep mentioning his name. I think that I thought that he might be signed by now, but maybe he has to show them one more time that he's ready for the big show. My teammate, Sam Patterson, he's a guy that's hungry to fight right now. And, he's doing incredible things at Brave. But yeah, I just think that he's a special talent that we need to see more. We need to see out there fighting. So I'm excited for those guys to get a taste of what it's like to put on the UFC gloves.
Just quickly, you mentioned there Arnold Allen and Sadiq Yusuf. That's a hell of a fight, isn't it?
Oh, that's a big old fight.
Yeah.
Really good. And I think if we sort of take a step back from that fight, I think that the featherweight division was a bit quiet in 2020 for obvious reasons. There was some like Zabit, like, where is he? What's going on? Why haven't we seen him? Phenomenal. Yair Rodriguez, I don't really know what the situation is there as well. And I know they were matched, and that would have been like mouth-watering. So we got off to a good start with Calvin and Max Holloway. Incredible, like masterful performance by Max. That set the tone really nicely for that division. Now let's see some wonderful fights as we go through the year. This is one of them. We're going to see some new contenders appear, particularly out of that fight, because Volkanovski and Holloway has shown that he's right there again. Boy, there's some big fights to be had, and I'm excited for that division. I think it's going to be a really, really good year for 145.
Just very quickly answer on this one. Where do you see MMA in the UK being in 5, 10, 20 years?
It's hard to predict, because as much I'm a very impatient person, and I've seen peaks and troughs. It's ebbed and flowed a little bit in the UK, but I believe that the elements are in place at the moment for us to kick on. Like BT Sport seem to really value the UFC deal, and they're putting out shoulder programming, really good quality stuff as well. Their social media team is phenomenal.
Excellent.
Some of the animation stuff that they've done, like, so creative. So they're on board, and you need that. You need that to be in everyone's sights. And we need guys like you and other people to be putting out more and more content to give voice to the sport and those within it. So I feel like we're in a position where we have a lot of the stuff there. We just need some athletes to really capture the imagination of the public. We also need the bloody mainstream and like the real big sporting authorities to recognize us in all facets of what we're trying to do as a sport, because we deserve to be side by side with these other big mainstream sports. Like it's crazy. So when that happens and that recognition gets in place, then that's going to help again. We're getting closer. We're getting the mentions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that we're gonna see slow, gradual growth over that time period that you're talking about. But it's, there's no ceiling to this. We're led by the UFC and a very brave organization that are smashing down barriers and obstacles all the time. And that's what you need. So they're leading the way. Everyone else get on board. And let's keep on going forward and spread the word of this incredible sport.
I think that's a good way to end it. John, I'm super grateful for the time today. It's been great to sort of pick your brain a little bit. So where can people keep up with what you're doing and anything you want to plug or promote?
John Gooden UK across everything. That's pretty much where it's at. If stay across this fundraising initiative thing when I'm hopefully going to go with this week, next week, so there'll be something for other people to share. But I don't mind people spreading the word now, because I need everyone in the community to get behind it so that we can help out some people, because our sport will need that. As we were just sort of saying, we don't have the support of governments and things like that. So we need to look to one another to help bolster our position. So that's johngooden.co.uk/UK MMA. But I'll be talking about it on my socials as well. So I appreciate anyone that's able to just spread the word or help out in any which way they can.
Thank you so much for the time today, John, again. Been a
No
pleasure.
worries. All the best.
Thanks.